Hello all, a nice day here, bringing you another knife review, and today we're going to be looking at the Boker Urban Trapper. This particular example is in snakewood. The liner, or I guess these aren't even liners, this is just a frame, is in steel. The blade is in VG10. It is a Brad Zinker design. It's got a deep carry clip, and it is a liner lock, or no, I guess this would be a frame lock realistically. These are just overlays. Let's jump into specifications real quick. I don't think this will take too long. This one is pretty simple. The blade is, on this version, 3.5, almost on the dot, with a 7 3/4 overall, which should make this 4 1/4. Yep, pretty much. There is a smaller version of this with a 2.75 inch blade, and there's a larger version of this with a 3.75 inch blade. And there are quite a few versions of this in general. I think there's a super tiny version that they call the Urban Trapper with like a 1.96 inch blade, and yeah. I think there's even one with a 3.3 inch. They have a ton of variants of this thing. Slip joint variants, liner lock variants, or, well, frame lock variants, whatever. Let us do, well, you know what? I have it in my hand to move out of the way, so we'll do the hardware check right now. Oh no! Oh no! Yeah, the hardware check is not really relevant here. The overlay, you know what? I'll take them off. I'll go that extra step and take them off. Why not, right? To show you what we're looking at under here. These are T6. I don't love seeing T6, but I will say that these are not the worst ones I've ever encountered. So, credit where it is due. Assuming it actually gets out of the knife. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this, shall we? Yes, thank you, magnets. I'm trying to be expedient and quick on this, and I'm failing miserably. And that one comes out, of course. So, what you're actually looking at, are you serious? What? There. Yeah. Okay. So what you're actually looking at is, unfortunately, T6 on everything except for the pivot. Yeah. Don't like seeing that. Don't like seeing that at all. But as I said, these are at least holding up decently. Now you're not helping. But these are really small screws, and there's quite a bit of them, and I don't like seeing T6 in general. No one does. I'm going to say it on every single review that has a T6 screw. Because I guess none of the companies are listening. To be fair, I think, is Brad Zinker a South African knife maker? Or is he a US knife maker? You know, I don't know. But T6 is a very common thing to be found on. No. Okay, well, I'm going to have to look for that afterwards, because that screw just went flying, and it is tiny, and that is going to suck for me. Crap. Yeah, that's going to be fun. That'll wait. Yeah. Let's do our comparisons before this gets any more horrifying and goes any. I don't know how it could possibly go worse, but it's going, and it's going forward. Comparisons: Civivi Elementum, Civivi Conspirator. small, full-size knife. It is pretty much the same in blade length as the Conspirator, with the same cutting edge. The handle is actually a bit shorter than the Conspirator, and as you can see, it is extremely thin, nimble knife, which is honestly one of the good things about it. It's very sort of a gentlemanly knife. Thickness, it's not all that thick. It's the wood is contoured, and I would call that slightly thinner than maybe even the Elementum, not the Conspirator. And I mean, folded up, yeah, it disappears. It is a extremely light use knife for office or carry or something like that, gentleman's carry. Yeah. To further that, we will get a quick weight before I go off train again. 1.83 ounces. Yeah, you're getting way more than an ounce, an inch, almost double. It's a feather. It disappears into the pocket. Handle thickness, 416 thousandths. So just, I mean, it's under half an inch. Blade stock is almost dead on at 100 thousandths. And behind the edge, it should be pretty darn thin. 14 thousandths, really? I think I might be a little high, so I'm going to give it the 13 thousandths. It's pretty darn thin behind the edge. I believe this knife is technically hollow ground. You can't really see it very well because it's not going to pick up because of just... But I'm pretty sure this knife is a hollow grind. It's not a super deep hollow grind, but it's definitely appreciated being on such a not tall knife, I guess, blade, because you don't have so much room to drop down. So as the longer you can keep it thin behind the edge, which it is thin behind the edge, and it stays that way with the exception of a bit of a thicker tip, is appreciated. That was a smart move on their part. Good idea. So this thing deploys with a flipper only. It is on bearings. The ergos are, I mean, it's a pen. It's extremely neutral. You can feel the clip, but that's only because the clip is so big in relation to the rest of the dang knife, and it's a deep carry clip. It's not uncomfortable in any way. I know Brad Zinker likes his flaring out clips, and I understand why, because they are typically slightly more comfortable. They also provide a better surface area for contact with the pocket, so it's usually easier in and out of the pocket. And they work. I'm not complaining. It's deep carry, almost to the end, with flat screws under there, so this thing's great. It's not reversible, so you're never going to have to interact with that clip. So, do what you will. The plunge grind on this knife, ooh, I gotta stop that, is not good. It's arguably slightly before the edge termination. You can almost see it get a little wider right there. You can see it get a little wider right there. So my guess is that there is basically no plunge grind here. That said, the stop pin is really hard to see. Let's see if I can get it on camera. There it is. It's down in there. It's like way in here. So you can do whatever you want. Cut whatever you want into this knife, and it should be fine. So it's not a problem. I wish it was better, but it's not a problem. The edge termination and the plunge could be a bit better. But on such a thin knife and giving you free rein to do whatever you want, you're fine. It has a pretty, it's a fingerprinty satin. It looks like a hand satin, but it's most certainly definitely not. It's pretty fine, and it's a bit pretty reflective. It's actually a good looking satin. It's just a little bit more fingerprinty than maybe you want it to be. It is not fun to photograph, though. As you can see, it is picking up every light source. Oh. Yeah, it's a really fine, almost mirror satin. Approaching mirror satin. At certain angles, you can really get a lot of reflection on this thing. I like the finish. So, what I don't love so much. First of all, let's see if you hear it. I don't know if you heard that, but substantial lock stick. For such a small knife, I'm going to call it substantial. On another knife, it wouldn't be a lot, but it sounds like quite a bit. It's a pop. It's a really noticeable pop. This knife is also, it's reasonably smooth, but it's not super smooth. Well, yeah, it's not really that smooth. You can feel the bearings roll. I mean, I wouldn't expect this from a budget knife. This is not a budget knife, which we will get to, but it sort of falls into just an elevated version of that category. So I don't expect it to do that much better, but I will say that it actuates reasonably decently, but the flipper tab is horrible. For the push button, it is uncomfortable. Because I find myself when I push into it, as soon as it starts moving, what are you pushing into? You're pushing into this corner. For the light switch, it is uncomfortable. Because you're pushing into this corner. The flipper tab is not designed well. It honestly just needs to get shaved off there. That corner needs to go. The detent is fine. Reasonably decent. The blade is not centered. There's no play. I mean, the whole thing being as thin as it is has a little bit of flex, but there's no play in any direction, which is nice. But it's not centered. And I don't love seeing giant branding. Boker, why? I get that the Boker Plus is your logo, but why can't it be up here? Why can't it be just minimized into here? Why can't you put the Boker Plus? Just put your... I guess the word is integral to the rest of the... Honestly, for a gentleman's knife, I mean, on your regular knives, okay, fine. I still would like it to see it minimized or moved to a better area. But for a gentleman's knife, just get rid of it completely. Tell me that doesn't look better than that. And that. So on this knife specifically, I'd like to see it removed, but in general, I'd like to see them do a little less branding. That's the case for a lot of budget brands, though. So I'm not holding it against the knife in any way. I am holding that not centered and lock stick against the knife. Also, if you notice, it's about a 50% lockup. It hasn't moved, but that's where it was when I started with this knife. Or when I got it, I should say. Which it wasn't that long ago. I got it because it was on sale. So, thoughts on the Urban Trapper. It's a good design. But Boker's quality control and overall quality for the price of their knives, because their knives tend to be a tiny bit more expensive, even some of their Chinese-made knives. I think this is... I'm going to look it up real fast. I already have it open, just because I was looking at how many variants of this thing there are. I think this is a Chinese-made knife. For some reason, it doesn't say it. For some reason, it does have 0123 on the spine, which is crowned up here, but not here, but it's a swedge. This particular one, yeah, it's a Chinese-made knife. So, Boker's Chinese-made knives, they're Boker Plus is their budget Chinese-made knife line. It has, in my experience, considerably lower quality and worse quality control than a lot of other brands coming out of China. Civivi, Kaiser, CJRB has stepped up some of its quality control to be a bit more consistent. So, yeah. This Boker's price points on almost all of their tiers of knives are high. A little bit high, not horribly, sometimes they are, but not on average horribly high, but they're higher than what you should be getting for this quality. And that's pretty consistent. This is a $123 knife in VG10 and steel and some severe issues. That's not recommendable at that price point. The design's recommendable. I like the design. But what's going on here, the way it's done, is pretty bad. $423. I got it on sale and with the snakewood, even though this is a special or limited edition. I think it was like $75. So that would be budget. That would be the top end of the budget for me. And at that price point, it would be recommendable if you got it in better condition than mine. If it was just centered. Even this little lock stick, I don't mind that too badly. But if it was centered, and ideally, of course, if the slight change to the flipper tab was made, that was into the mat. Yeah. I would say that at $75, this is a reasonable knife. VG10, bit of wood. At $85, if they could get their centering right, if they could get their lock stick right, or non-existent, this would be a reasonable knife. But Boker's quality has underwhelmed me pretty consistently. In fact, this is the only knife from Boker that I own at the moment. Yeah. I heard that their German stuff is a bit better, but you're definitely paying for it. And the best of their mark is probably the stuff they outsource to for their autos. I think they outsource it to ProTech. And ProTech's USA and very high quality for something like their Quaken Auto, I think. So no, I don't recommend this knife unless it's on a really good sale, and you're still taking a bit of a shot in the dark. And there isn't much I can say to recommend Boker in general. They're not really doing anything. I mean, I know they have their own, they're European, and I guess most of their business is probably in their slip joints because of non-locking life laws in Europe and stuff. So I get it. I wish it wasn't the case, but I get it. So I'm going to just say no. No to this. Step up your game, Boker. And reevaluate your price points because they're just a bit too far outside the acceptable norm for the quality that we're getting nowadays in the budget territory. I won't speak to your higher tier stuff because I haven't had it. But I also haven't had it because it hasn't really been very impressive looking to me. Yeah. I do like what you're doing with what Boker is doing with their special series where they're using like old tanks and old planes and steel from old cars and stuff like that to make their Damascus and stuff. That's kind of cool. That's fun. The idea of having an old tank parts being made into your blade is cool. I hope it's better quality. Because you ain't hitting the mark here. And that's all for me today. So, bye for now, everybody.